The agonizing, metallic cold of the trailer wasn't just in the air, it was in her bones, a damp misery that her thin blanket couldn't fight. Ilara huddled, knees to her chest, trying to ignore the gnawing hunger that was her only constant companion since Liam died. She was a widow at 22, an outcast from the Silverwood Pack, left to rot in this abandoned husk of metal in the neutral borderlands. She closed her eyes, picturing Liam's smile, a desperate ritual to find warmth. And that's when the new pain came. It wasn't hunger. It wasn't grief. It was a searing, magical fire that shot from her sternum down her arms. She screamed, a thin sound swallowed by the pines. It felt like a wolf's howl ripping through her mind, a voice that wasn't a voice, but a demand. It was agonizing, terrifying, and it had a name. Kaylin. The name echoed in her skull as a golden, shimmering light exploded behind her eyelids, and an unbearable heat settled onto the skin of her left wrist, branding her, marking her. Wait, before the next revelation unfolds, if this mystery has already captivated you, let us know where you're following this story from. To ensure you don't miss unexpected claims, broken bonds, or awakenings under the moon, subscribe and stay close. Now, back to the scene. Ilara stared, panting, at her wrist. Where only pale skin and blue veins had been, there was now a perfect, glowing crescent moon, intricate as a royal seal. It pulsed with a faint warmth that was already fighting back the trailer's chill. She didn't understand. She knew that name. Everyone knew it. Kaylin, the Alpha King of all unified packs, ruler of the Stone Throne, a figure of mythic power and, according to rumor, mythic suffering. A man dying, they whispered. A king bound by a curse that was draining his life, his very alpha spirit, leaving the packs vulnerable. She touched the mark, her fingers trembling. This was mate magic. She knew the feel of it, the pull. But it was wrong. She'd had a mate. Liam. Her kind, gentle Liam, taken by the rogue fever 6 months ago. A wolf could only have one fated mate. To be a widow was to be incomplete forever. So what was this? This golden, demanding royal mark? She had no time to process. The sound of heavy footsteps crunching on frosted needles made her flinch. Then the sharp, authoritative rap on the thin metal door. Open in the name of the king. Ilara froze. They couldn't be here for her. She was nothing, a cast-off. She pulled the blanket tighter, hiding her wrist. The door didn't wait for permission. It was ripped from its hinges, slamming against the rotted particle board wall. 2 men stood in the opening, silhouetted against the gray dawn. They weren't pack guards. They were heralds, the Alpha King's personal guard, clad in black leather armor trimmed with silver. Their scent was sharp, ozone and pine, the scent of pure authority. "By the moon," the taller one hissed, his eyes wide, fixed not on her, but on the light emanating from beneath her blanket. "It's real." "Caesar," the other commanded, his voice rough. "No, wait!" Ilara scrambled backward, hitting the wall. "I've done nothing. I'm just—" "You are a summons," the tall one said, his gaze softening with something like awe or perhaps pity. He stepped inside, the trailer groaning under his weight. "The curse, it called you." "I don't understand," she whispered, her heart hammering against her ribs. He reached out, not unkindly, but with unbreakable strength, and pulled the blanket away. He held her arm, turning her wrist to the light. The crescent moon flared, as if recognizing his authority. "It is the Cryos mark," he breathed. "The mark of the healer, the mate prophesied to break the blood moon echo." "But I am a widow," Ilara choked out. The word felt like ash in her mouth. My mate is dead. This is a mistake. It must be. The guard's pity vanished, replaced by a cold, hard suspicion. His grip tightened, bruising. "A widow?" he repeated, his lip curling. He looked at his partner. "The king is dying, and the moon sends him used goods?" "It doesn't matter what she is," the second herald snapped. "She bears the mark. She is the summons. Take her, now." Ilara cried out as she was hauled to her feet. The trailer's meager warmth was nothing compared to the biting wind outside. She had no shoes. The frozen ground stabbed at her bare feet. But the heralds didn't slow, dragging her between them toward a dark, imposing carriage that waited on the logging road. She was shoved inside, the door barred. She was a prisoner. The journey was a blur of terror and confusion. The mark on her wrist pulsed with a steady rhythm, a counterpart to a heartbeat that wasn't hers. With every mile closer to the capital, the stone-thrown citadel, she felt him, Kalen. She felt his pain, a deep, weary ache that settled in her own chest. She felt his frustration, his rage, and his terrifying weakness. It was a violation, this intimacy with a stranger. By the time the carriage clattered over the massive drawbridge and into the fortress's courtyard, she was weeping, not just for herself, but for the dying king she had never met. She was dragged through halls of cold, dark stone, past guards whose faces were masks of disbelief. They stared at her bare feet, her torn, thin dress, and the glowing mark on her wrist. The whispers followed her. "A borderkin? She's filthy. A widow? The moon mocks us." They threw open two massive oaken doors and shoved her into the throne room. It was not a grand hall, but a chamber of sickness. The air was thick with the scent of burning sage, wolfsbane, and something metallic like old blood. Healers in gray robes hurried back and forth, their faces grim. And on a massive, unadorned throne of black basalt, he sat. He was nothing like the myths. The myths spoke of a giant, a warrior who united the 7 alphas. This man was a skeleton draped in royal furs. His skin was pale, stretched tight over sharp cheekbones, but it was his arms that held her gaze. Veins of black, like creeping shadow, crawled up his skin from his fingertips, converging on his heart. The curse, the blood moon echo. He lifted his head as she entered. His eyes were still powerful, a piercing ice blue that scanned her with agonizing intensity. He saw her ragged clothes, her terrified expression. He saw the mark. A low growl rumbled in his chest, a sound of pure, undiluted fury. "What is this?" His voice was a rasp, but it carried the weight of absolute command. "She bears the mark, Alpha King," the herald announced, forcing Ilara to her knees. "The curse called her name. We found her in the borderlands." Kalen's gaze locked on her wrist. The mark flared, and Ilara gasped as a wave of his pain slammed into her. He flinched, his hand gripping the throne. He felt it. He felt the connection. "Her name," he grated out. "Ilara," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Of the Silverwood Pack. I am—" She had to say it. "I am a widow, my king. My mate, Liam, he died of the fever." The word widow hung in the air like a death sentence. The healers stopped. The guards stiffened. Kalen's eyes, which had held a flicker of desperate hope, turned to ice. The shadow veins on his arms seemed to pulse. "A widow," he repeated,
The word was a snarl. I am dying. My kingdom is fracturing, and the great moon sends me a lie. A vessel already claimed, emptied, and discarded. No, Ilara cried, finding a sliver of strength. I did not ask for this. It appeared. It is a mockery, he spat. He tried to rise, but a wave of dizziness forced him back. The rage was the only thing holding him up. The curse plays its final hand, offering me a tainted cure, a poison wrapped in gold. Kaelin, she whispered, the name slipping out. The intimacy of the bond, the pain she felt from him, made her forget her place. That was her mistake.
His head snapped toward her. You will not speak my name, witch. You come here, reeking of another male, bearing a mark you cannot possibly hold. You are an abomination. He looked at his heralds, his face a mask of iron. I, Alpha King Kaelin, reject this false claim. I reject her. She is no mate of mine. The curse has failed. The words of rejection hit Ilara like a physical blow. It was 1,000 times worse than the pack shunning her. It was a tearing of the soul. She collapsed, a sharp, agonizing cry ripped from her throat as the fledgling bond was ripped apart. But something was wrong. The mark on her wrist didn't fade. It flared. It burned, hotter than before, a searing, defiant light. Kaelin roared, clutching his chest. The rejection hadn't worked. The curse disagreed. The black veins on his arms surged, darkening, crawling toward his throat. The healers rushed to him. "My king!" It didn't work," he choked out, staring at Ilara with a new, terrifying mixture of hatred and need. The bond was still there, twisted, broken, but present. "She is a witch!" a gray-robed elder shouted from the corner. "She's holding the king's life hostage! She's inverted the bond!" "I am not!" Ilara sobbed from the floor, the pain of the rejection and the burn of the mark overwhelming her. "Silence her," Kaelin commanded, his voice weak. He was breathing heavily, the effort costing him. "Take her from my sight. Put her in the dungeons, in the deep cells where her magic cannot reach me." He looked at her one last time, his eyes filled with despair. "Find out what she is, and if she is a lie, she will burn for it." The herald seized her again. This time, there was no pity. She was dragged, half-conscious, from the throne room, the scent of sage and sickness replaced by the smell of damp stone and despair. She was a widow who had been called, a mate who had been rejected, and a prisoner whose very existence was agony to the king she was supposedly meant to save. The dungeons of the stone-thrown citadel were carved from the mountain's root far below the living quarters. The cold here was different from the trailer. It was a dead cold, absolute and silent. Ilara was thrown into a cell, the heavy iron door slamming shut with a finality that broke the last of her spirit. She was left in darkness, with only the damp straw on the floor and the relentless, agonizing pulse of the mark on her wrist. The rejection had failed. She knew what that meant. A true rejection, when both parties acknowledged it, dissolved the bond instantly. But he had rejected her, and she hadn't. She had been too stunned, too hurt. And the curse itself had refused the rejection. It held the bond in place, a jagged, open wound between them. She felt him. Even here, deep in the earth, she felt his rage, his confusion, and beneath it all, the creeping, agonizing progress of the curse. His pain was her pain. She doubled over, clutching her stomach, as a wave of nausea and weakness, his weakness, washed over her. She could feel him fading. "Stop it," she whimpered into the darkness. "Leave me alone." But the bond, unwanted and broken, was a two-way street. He was being poisoned by the curse, and she was being poisoned by him. Days blurred, or perhaps it was only hours. A guard came once, leaving a crust of stale bread and a wooden cup of water, which she ignored. She was too consumed by the shared agony. She drifted in and out of a painful half-sleep, her dreams filled with Liam's fading smile and Kaylin's icy blue eyes. She was startled awake by the sound of a heavy bar being lifted. Light flooded the cell, blinding her, her mark flaring in response. He stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on the stone frame. Alpha King Kaylin. He looked worse. The black veins had reached his jaw, and his breathing was shallow. He was alone. His icy blue eyes scanned the cell, landing on her huddled form. He looked like a wolf caught in a trap, forced to gnaw its own leg off. "How?" he rasped. Ilara pushed herself against the back wall. "How? How what?" "How are you doing this?" He took a staggered step inside, his scent filling the small space. Pine, ozone, and the sharp, coppery smell of his sickness. The rejection failed. "My healers say you have anchored the curse. You are holding me hostage." "I am holding nothing!" she cried, the injustice of it igniting a spark of anger. "I am in your prison. I feel your pain. Every second, I feel you dying. Do you think I want this?" His eyes narrowed. "You feel my pain?" "It's all I feel," she whispered, tears tracking through the grime on her face. "It's a cold, so cold, and it burns. It wants. What?" he demanded, taking another step. "What does it want?" "It wants me," she choked out, looking at her glowing wrist. "It's calling me. It wants to settle. It thinks I'm its home." Kaylin stared at her, his expression unreadable. He was inches from her now, the sheer power of his alpha presence pressing down on her, even in his weakened state. He was judging her, weighing her. "You lie," he said, but the words lacked conviction. "I am a widow," she said, her voice shaking. "I loved my mate. I wanted nothing more than to grieve him in peace, in my miserable trailer. I wanted none of this. I didn't ask for this mark. I didn't ask for you." His gaze dropped to her wrist. The mark was pulsing, a soft, warm light in the gloom. He seemed mesmerized by it. The air between them was thick, charged. He was so close, she could feel the faint heat radiating from his skin, fighting the curse's chill. "The elders demand your execution," he said, his voice flat. "They say you are a blight, a border-kin witch who has manipulated the sacred bond. They say your death will free me." Ilara's breath hitched. "And what do you say?" He didn't answer. He looked at her, his jaw tight, his inner battle so profound she could almost hear it. He hated her. He hated what she represented, a failure of fate, a mockery of his lineage. But he was here. He hadn't sent an executioner. He had come himself. "If I die," she said, the realization dawning, "what happens to you? If the bond is real and the rejection failed, what happens to the Alpha King when his fated mate is executed?" His eyes flashed with fury. "You are not my fated mate." "Then kill me!" she screamed, lunging to her feet, surprising them both. She was thin, weak, but her spirit was not broken. "Do it! End this! If I am a lie, end me!" And if I am the truth, die with me." She shoved her marked wrist toward him. "Go on, do it." He stared at her, breathing hard. The proximity, the raw emotion was charging the air. The mark on her wrist was pulsing violently, in time with the black veins on his neck. And then, a tremor ran through him. His eyes rolled back, and his knees buckled. The curse was surging, punishing him for his rage, for his denial. He let out a strangled groan and collapsed, catching himself on the cell wall, his body sliding toward the floor. "Kalen!" Ilara didn't think, she reacted. The Bond screamed. He was dying, right now. He was crashing. She fell to her knees beside him, grabbing his arm to steady him. The moment her skin touched his, it was like lightning. Her mark, the crescent moon, burned white hot. She cried out, but she didn't let go. She saw the black veins on his arm, writhing under his skin like living things. They sensed her. Instinctively, she pressed her marked wrist directly onto the creeping veins. His roar of relief was terrifying. The effect was immediate. The black veins, they retreated. Like shadows from a light, they sizzled and pulled back from her touch, receding down his arm, away from his heart. The color returned to his face, his breathing evening out. The relief was so profound, she felt it too. The shared agony vanished, replaced by a clean, pure warmth. He was staring at her, his blue eyes wide, sharp, and no longer clouded by pain. He was seeing her, really seeing her, the widow, the prisoner, the cure. The silence in the cell was absolute, broken only by their harsh breathing. He was still leaning against her, her hand clamped to his arm, the mark on her wrist pressed to his skin. Neither of them moved. The moment was fragile, terrifying, and undeniable. Kalen was the first to break it. He ripped his arm away from her as if he'd been burned. He scrambled backward, hitting the opposite wall of the cell, his chest heaving. The black veins, no longer held in check, instantly stopped their retreat and began their slow, agonizing crawl back up his arm. The pain returned to his face. "What did you do?" he snarled, but his voice was shaking. I don't know," Ilara whispered, staring at her hand. Her mark was glowing, seemingly satisfied. It wanted to." He looked at her, his face a mask of horror and self-loathing. He had been weak. He had collapsed. And she, this nothing, had saved him, had given him relief he hadn't felt in years. It was a violation of everything he believed. He was the Alpha King. He should be the strong one. "You are a parasite," he hissed, the words laced with a new venom, born not of rejection, but of fear. "You are feeding on me." "No," she cried, scrambling back. "I helped you. The pain, it stopped." "You've anchored yourself to me," he accused, his voice rising. "This is a trick, a witch's trick. You're making me need you. You're making me weak. I am making you live." He flinched, the truth of her words hitting him. He looked at her, trapped. He couldn't kill her, the rejection had proven that. He couldn't trust her, his pride wouldn't allow it. And now he couldn't leave her. That single moment of relief, of pure, blessed quiet from the curse, was a drug. And she was the only source. He stood, using the wall for support. His power was returning, fed by the echo of her touch. "You are not a prisoner," he said, his voice cold, decisive. "A prisoner can be ignored. You are a disease, and the cure is worse." He turned and slammed his fist on the iron door, bellowing for the guard. "Get this door open!" The bar lifted, and the guards appeared, their eyes wide at the sight of the king, inside the cell, looking stronger than he had in months. "Take her out of here," Kalen commanded, not looking at Elara. "My king, to the pyre?" the guard asked, uncertain. "No," Kalen grated. "Take her to the North Tower, the old Luna's chambers." The guards stared, shocked. The North Tower was isolated, but it was not a dungeon. It was a cage of cold comfort. "She is to be watched," Kalen continued, stepping out of the cell, refusing to look back at her. "She is to be fed. She is to be kept clean. But she is not to leave that room. No one sees her. No one speaks to her. She is a necessary evil, nothing more." He strode away, his heralds trailing in his wake, leaving Elara alone in the light from the hallway. She understood. She wasn't his mate. She wasn't his prisoner. She was his leash, a tool, a thing to be kept nearby, a living antidote he despised himself for needing. The North Tower was a marked improvement on the dungeon, but it was just as lonely. The chambers were spacious, but barren. Dust covers thrown over furniture they hadn't been used in decades, since Kalen's mother died. There was a bed, a table, and a fireplace that the guards, under strict orders not to speak to her, lit once in the morning, leaving her a small portion of bread and cheese. But the worst part was the window. It overlooked the entire citadel, the training grounds, the town beyond, and the dark, sprawling woods she had come from. It was a portrait of a life she could see, but never touch. The bond, however, was clearer here. She felt Kalen constantly. She felt his daily struggles, the meetings with the elders, the frustration as he tried to rule while the curse sapped his strength. And she felt his need. It was a dull, constant ache in the back of her mind, a pull. He was fighting it. He was refusing to come to her. She'd been in the tower for 3 days when the pull became unbearable. It wasn't her need, it was his. The curse was surging, and he was losing. She paced the room, her mark burning, her own body aching in sympathy. He was in the throne room. She could sense it, and he was in agony. "Come to me," she thought, the bond carrying the desperate, unspoken plea. "You are a fool. Let me help." She didn't know if he heard her, but minutes later, her door was unlocked. Kalen stood there, his face pale and slick with sweat, his heralds flanking him, their faces grim. "Just do it," he grated, his voice tight with pain. Elara's anger flared. "Do what? Be your tonic?" "Do not speak," he commanded. He strode into the room, shoving his arm toward her, his sleeve already pushed up. The black veins were pulsing, dangerously close to his elbow. "Touch me. Stop it." He spoke as if ordering a dog. Elara looked at his arm, then at his face. He was vibrating with pain and humiliation. "Say please," she whispered. His eyes flashed. "You dare?" "I dare," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "I am not your servant. I am not your pet. I am the woman you've locked in a tower. You will not treat me like this. You will not use me and hate me in the same breath. Ask me. Ask me." He stared at her, the battle in his eyes so fierce she thought he might strike her. The seconds ticked by. A groan escaped his lips as the curse flared, and he buckled, catching himself on the table. "My king!" "Stay back!" Kalen roared. He looked at Elara, his defenses shattered by the agony. "Please," he choked out, the word torn from him. "Elara, please." Her anger dissolved, replaced by the overwhelming, instinctual pull of the bond. She stepped forward, taking his arm gently. This time, she didn't just press her wrist to the veins. She held his arm with one hand and placed her marked palm flat against his, lacing their fingers together. The connection was explosive. It wasn't just relief this time, it was power. A circuit was completed. Her energy, strong, vital, untouched by the curse, flowed into him. His energy, vast, alpha, but tainted, flowed into her. She filtered it. She felt the darkness of the curse, tasted its metallic bitterness, and her mark burned it away, sending clean, warm energy back into him. He inhaled sharply, his eyes closing, his entire body shuddering with the relief. He squeezed her hand, his grip like a steel trap, anchoring himself to her. The black veins didn't just retreat, they vanished, disappearing from his skin entirely, suppressed. "How?" he breathed, his forehead resting against the stone mantle of the fireplace. He wouldn't look at her. "We share it," she whispered, the knowledge coming to her clear as a bell. "When I touch you, I'm taking my half. The curse, it was meant for two. It's been poisoning you because you were alone." He slowly turned his head. His eyes were clear, bright, and full of a terrifying vulnerability. He looked at their joined hands. "Two. A faded Alpha and his faded Luna," she said, her heart aching. "That's what this is. That's why the rejection failed. It's not a trick." He pulled his hand away, and the warmth vanished. He stepped back, the mask of the king slamming back into place, but his eyes were haunted. He knew she was telling the truth, and it terrified him. "You are a widow," he stated, the words an old, tired defense. "And you are my fated mate," she replied, her voice soft. "I don't know how, I don't know why the moon would do this, but I loved Liam. And now I am bound to you." She looked down, the grief for her first mate warring with the undeniable, electric pull toward the king. "Does my past, does my grief make this bond a lie, or does it just make it tragic?" Kayellen had no answer. He stared at her, a man caught between a truth he couldn't accept and a lie he could no longer afford. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice hoarse, "you will be brought to the council chambers. The elders will question you. They are looking for a way to sever this thing without killing me." "They won't find one," she said. "Then they will find a reason to kill you," he replied, his voice flat. "Be ready." He turned and left, the heralds barring her door behind him. Ilara was left in the silence, her hand still tingling from his. He hadn't just taken her help, he had relied on it. And in that reliance, she had found a flicker of power. She was no longer just the widow. She was the anchor. The next day, she was escorted to the council chambers. It was a dark, wood-paneled room dominated by a massive circular table. The 7 elders, 5 grim-faced men and 2 severe women, sat waiting. At the head of the table sat Kayellen, his face pale but composed, the black veins held at bay by the residual effect of her touch. And beside him, in a chair of honor, sat a woman Ilara had not seen before. She was beautiful, with sharp features and hair the color of a raven's wing, bound in intricate silver clips. Her dress was fine velvet, and her eyes, dark and intelligent, were fixed on Ilara with pure, unadulterated venom. "Ilara of the Borderlands," one of the elders, a man with a long gray beard, announced, "you stand accused of witchcraft, manipulation of a sacred bond, and treason against the crown." "I am guilty of none of those things," Ilara said, her voice clear. She kept her eyes on Kayellen, but he would not look at her. "Silence," the elder snapped.
You will speak when spoken to."
The dark-haired woman leaned forward, placing a perfectly manicured hand on Kaelin's arm. Ilara felt an irrational spike of jealousy, sharp and painful. "My king," the woman's voice was smooth, like poisoned honey. "Allow me, this is a delicate matter." Kaelin nodded, his jaw tight. "Lady Serena, you have the floor." Serena. The name was familiar. The Alpha of the Shadowcrest Pack, a powerful ally. And, rumor had it, the woman Kaelin was supposed to marry before the curse intensified. Serena stood and circled the table, her gaze never leaving Ilara. "A widow," she said, her voice dripping with false pity. "A poor, grieving creature. It must have been so hard, losing your mate." "It was," Ilara said, her guard up. "Yes, so hard that, apparently, you decided to acquire a new one, a better one." Serena stopped directly in front of her. "The Alpha King." "I acquired nothing," Ilara shot back. "I was called." "Were you?" Serena smiled. "We have, of course, investigated your past, your time with the Silverwood Pack, your mate, Liam." Ilara's heart seized. "What about him?" "He was a kind male, wasn't he? A simple Omega. Not an Alpha, not even a Beta. An Omega. A gentle soul." Serena paced. "Tell me, Ilara, was your bond a fated bond? Did the moon call you to him? Was there a mark?" Ilara froze. The blood drained from her face. She and Liam, theirs had been a quiet love, a companionship. They were two lost souls in a pack that didn't value them. They had chosen each other. They'd performed the chosen bond ritual, a simple ceremony of loyalty, not the earth-shattering fated call she now felt for Kaelin. There had been no mark. Serena saw the answer in her eyes. She smiled, a triumphant, cruel expression. "I see. No fated bond, no moon call, just a chosen arrangement, a mating of convenience." She spun to face the elders. "Do you see? She was never a true mated female. Her first bond was a lie, a mockery of the sacred rites. She was free." "She was unclaimed. That doesn't make her a witch," Ilara cried, her voice desperate. It means the moon. It waited." "It means you are a fraud," Serena shouted, her voice cracking like a whip. "You lived a lie in your pack, and you bring your lies here. You sensed the king's weakness, the curse's desperation, and you used your border-kin hedge magic to force a mark onto your skin. You are not his fated mate. You are a leech." The elders were in an uproar, shouting, "Abomination! Deceiver!" "It's not true!" Ilara looked at Kaelin, her eyes pleading. "Kaelin, tell them! You felt it! Our touch! It holds the curse back! It's real!" Kaelin looked at her, his face an unreadable mask. The revelation that her first bond was a chosen one had hit him hard. It was the loophole. It was the answer. It meant she was available. It meant the moon could have chosen her. It meant this nightmare was real. He saw two paths. One, accept this border-kin widow, this Ilara, as his fated queen, shattering centuries of tradition, angering his allies, and binding himself to a woman he didn't know and didn't want to need. Two, side with Serena, the pure alpha, his logical, political choice. Serena saw his hesitation. She moved in for the kill. "My king," she said, her voice dropping, becoming intimate. "We all see your relief. This witch has found a way to siphon the curse, yes, to manage it. She has made you dependent, a puppet king, held on the strings of a border-kin widow. Is that your reign, or do we end this?" What do you propose, Serena?" an elder asked. "She is not the cure," Serena said, her eyes locked on Kaelin. "She is a symptom, a false hope. The curse has latched onto her, yes, but it is still anchored in our king. We must purge it, not share it with this creature." "How?" Kaelin's voice was a whisper. "The ancient texts say the curse, the blood moon echo, can be burned away. By the grave fire," Serena said. "It requires a sacrifice. The vessel of the curse must be offered to the flame." Ilara's blood ran cold. "No!" "She's right," an elder said, his eyes gleaming. "The brave fire. It will burn the curse from the king's line forever, but it will destroy the vessel." "She means me," Ilara whispered, staring in horror. "You want to burn me?" "It is the only way, my king," Serena said, placing her hand on his chest. "To free you, to free us, to restore the kingdom. Be the king we need. Give the order." All eyes turned to Kaelin. He sat, trapped. He looked at Serena, his perfect, logical, cold choice. Then he looked at Ilara, his impossible, inconvenient, fated cure. He saw the terror in her eyes, and he saw himself, trapped, caged, sentenced. His duty warred with his instinct, the alpha king versus the fated mate. "I tried to reject her," he said, his voice hollow. It didn't work. It almost killed me." "Because you tried to break the bond," Serena countered, her voice urgent. "We are not breaking it. We are offering it, offering her to the fire. The bond will be transferred to the flame, to death. You will be cauterized. You will be cleansed." It was a perfect, terrible logic. It made sense. It was a way out. Ilara saw the decision in his eyes before he spoke. She saw him choose his crown. She saw him choose his pride. She saw him choose Serena. He began, his voice breaking. He looked at Ilara, his blue eyes filled with a new, deeper agony. "My kingdom, my people, they must come first." He stood, his voice gaining the cold iron of command. "The elders have spoken. Lady Serena has shown us the way." He would not look at her. He couldn't. "Take her," he commanded his heralds, "to the old ritual grounds. Prepare the grave fire. We do this at moonrise." "Kaelin!" Ilara screamed. This was the true rejection. Not the words in the throne room, but this sentence, this murder. "Kaelin, look at me! You know this is wrong! You feel it! Don't do this!" The herald seized her. She fought, she kicked, but she was weak. "You are a coward!" she shrieked at him, tears of rage and betrayal streaming down her face. "You are dying, and you are afraid to live!" He flinched as if she had struck him, but he did not turn. He did not stop them. She was dragged from the room, her screams echoing in the stone hall. Serena watched her go, a cold, triumphant smile on her lips. Kaelin sank into his chair, his hands gripping the armrests, his knuckles white. He had given the order. He had sentenced his fated mate to death. And the moment she was gone, the black veins, suppressed by her presence, began their slow, insidious crawl back up his arms. This time, they felt deserved. Ilara was taken to the ritual grounds, a bleak, windswept clearing on the mountainside, dominated by a circle of ancient, blackened stones. She was chained to a thick iron post set in the center. The heralds who bound her would not meet her eyes. They were soldiers, following an order they clearly despised. One of them, the taller one who had first found her at the trailer, hesitated before he left. "I am sorry," he whispered, so low only she could hear. "Valerius. My name is Valerius. The king, he is wrong." "Help me," she pleaded. "I cannot," he said, his face torn. "But the fire, it is not lit until moonrise. 4 hours. Be ready for anything." He backed away, joining his partner, and left her to the biting wind. Ilara sagged against the chains. She was going to die, betrayed by the king she was meant to save. She looked at her wrist. The mark was pulsing, a frantic, terrified beat. It knew, and through it, she felt Cailan. He was in the council chamber, alone, trying to justify his decision. He was in agony. The curse was surging, punishing him for the betrayal, and there was no one to touch him, no one to share the burden. He was weaker than he had ever been. Good, she thought, a vicious, bitter satisfaction cutting through her terror. Suffer, suffer as you're making me suffer. But the bond was cruel. His suffering was hers. As his pain spiked, so did hers. She cried out, the wind stealing the sound. They were killing each other. An hour passed, 2. The sun began to dip, painting the sky in shades of blood red and bruised purple. Ilara shivered, the cold seeping into her. Then she heard a sound, a snap of a twig. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice raw. Valerius, the tall herald, stepped out from the shadows of the pines, his black armor making him one with the dusk. He was alone. "We don't have much time," he said, moving quickly to her, a heavy iron key in his hand. You're freeing me?" Ilara's heart hammered. "I am loyal to the Alpha King," Valerius said, his voice grim as he worked the heavy lock on her chains. "And the king is a fool. He is killing himself. He is killing his mate." The lock clicked open, and the heavy chains fell away. "Serena," Ilara chafed her raw wrists. "She lied. She wants the throne." "I know," Valerius said. "She has her own loyalists, the Shadow Crest Guard. They are not here. They are securing the perimeter. She wants no witnesses when this ritual fails and the king expires. He's dying? Faster than ever. The moment he sentenced you, the curse doubled its hold. He won't last the night, whether you burn or not." Valerius pushed her toward the trees. "Go, flee back to the borderlands, your trailer, anywhere. Just run. Your presence here condemns you, but your absence, it might just save him. It might make him see." "But Serena's guards." "I will deal with them," he said, drawing his sword. "Go, run, live, lady." Lady? He had called her lady. Ilara didn't hesitate. She plunged into the woods, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate, primal urge to survive. She ran, stumbling over roots, branches tearing at her thin dress. She ran, not just from the fire, but from the king who had ordered it. She had been running for what felt like an hour when she heard it. A howl, a deep, agonizing roar of an alpha in pure, undiluted agony. It wasn't just a sound. She felt it in her chest, a sympathetic pain so strong it dropped her to her knees. Cailan! She clutched her mark. It was burning, hotter than the pyre. He knows. Back at the Citadel, Cailan had collapsed. He had been sitting in the dark council chamber when the bond, already strained, snapped. Not the mate bond, the proximity, the chain that kept her tethered to him. The moment Valerius freed her, the moment she fled, the curse had no anchor. It roared back, consuming him. The black veins covered his entire body in seconds. He was dying. And in that moment of pure, agonizing clarity, he knew. He knew Serena had lied. He knew the pyre was a sham. He knew with absolute certainty that Ilara was his fated mate. The loophole of her chosen bond was the proof. The moon had waited until she was free, and he, in his pride and his fear, had tried to kill the only thing keeping him alive. "Valerius!" he roared, stumbling from the chamber, his heralds rushing to his side. He is not here, my king," one said, terrified at the sight of him. The curse was visible on his face, a web of black across his throat. "She's gone," Kalen choked out. He freed her. Good man." He gripped the herald's armor. "Find her! Find her! She went to the woods, the borderlands. She's going home, to the trailer. My king, you are in no state." "I am dying," Kalen bellowed, shoving the guard away. He staggered toward the courtyard, his Alpa strength surging on pure desperation. "If she dies, I die." Serena chose that moment to appear, her Shadow Crest guards behind her. "My king, what is this? The ritual, it's time." Kalen turned on her, his eyes glowing with a feral, primal light. The king was gone, replaced by the beast. "You," he snarled, "you lied." Serena's face paled. "I did what was necessary." "You tried to murder my mate," he roared. He launched himself at her, but the curse chose that moment to cripple him. He collapsed, his body convulsing. Serena saw her chance. "He's lost. The curse has him. He's turned on us. Kill him!" she shrieked at her guards. "Kill the king!" His heralds, loyal to Kalen, drew their swords. "Protect the king! Treason!" The courtyard exploded into chaos. Ilara felt it all, the battle, the treason, the fading of Kalen's life force. She had reached the abandoned logging road, her lungs burning, the trailer visible just through the trees. And she stopped. She could keep running. She could be free. Let him die. Let them all die. They deserved it. But the bond, it wasn't just his pain. It was him, his strength, his loneliness, his terrible burden. She was bound to it, and the thought of that light, that powerful icy blue light, being extinguished forever. "Damn you," she whispered. "Damn you, Kalen." She turned. She ran back toward the citadel, back toward the king who had betrayed her, back toward the pyre. She burst back into the ritual clearing. It was empty. The pyre was unlit. Her chains lay on the ground. But she heard the clash of steel from the citadel courtyard. She ran. She arrived, breathless, to a scene of carnage. Kalen's heralds were fighting a losing battle against Serena's guard. And Kalen was on his knees, unarmed, fending off a blow from Serena herself, who held a bloody sword. Valerius was on the ground nearby, wounded but alive, trying to get to his feet. "No!" Ilara screamed. Serena turned, her eyes wide with shock. You were supposed to be gone." "Get away from him!" Ilara shrieked. She grabbed a fallen sword from the cobblestones. It was heavy, unfamiliar, but her adrenaline was singing. "Kill her!" Serena ordered her men. One of the Shadow Crest guards turned, raising his blade, but he never made it. A black-furred wolf slammed into his side, a beast of shadow and rage. Kalen. He had used the last of his strength to shift. He was massive, but the curse was visible on his very fur, patches of it seeming to wither even as he fought. He took down the guard, but another was on him, plunging a spear into his shoulder. The wolf roared in pain. Ilara ran, not at the guards, but at Kalen. Serena, seeing her chance, raised her sword to strike the wounded wolf. "Ilara, run!" Valerius bellowed from the ground. Ilara ignored him. She slid to her knees in front of the wounded massive wolf, her back to Serena. She faced her king. He was snarling, bleeding, trying to get past her to fight. "Kaelin, stop!" she commanded. She grabbed his huge furred head, her hand sinking into his ruff. "It's me. Look at me." His glowing blue eyes, wild with battle madness, focused on her. The rage softened, just a fraction, into confusion. "I am here," she whispered. "I came back." Behind her, she heard Serena laugh, a high, cruel sound. "Then you will die together, a fitting end." Elara heard the whistle of the sword as Serena swung it down, aiming for her unprotected back. Elara closed her eyes, clutching Kaelin, her marked wrist pressed against his muzzle. The blow never landed. Kaelin, with a final desperate surge of strength, twisted his massive body, covering her. The blade, meant for Elara, sank deep into his back, right over his wounded shoulder. The wolf roared, a sound of agony that shook the very stones. "No!" Elara screamed, her eyes flying open. Kaelin collapsed over her, his huge form shielding her, his hot blood pouring onto her, drenching her. He was shifting back, the effort too much. By the time his body settled, he was human again, lying atop her, his face buried in her neck. Serena stared, horrified. "No, I didn't." Valerius, finally on his feet, seized the moment. He ran Serena through from behind. "Treasonous bitch." Serena crumpled, her reign over. The remaining Shadowcrest guards, seeing their alpha dead, threw down their weapons. The battle was over. "Kaelin," Elara sobbed, pushing at his heavy, inert body. "Kaelin, no, no, please." She rolled him off her. He was pale as death. The wound in his back was mortal. The black veins were gone, but only because his life was. He was dying, truly dying. I, he whispered, his blue eyes trying to find hers. "You came back." "I'm here," she wept, cradling his head in her lap. "I'm here. Don't go. Don't you dare leave me. Not after this. You saved me." "I sentenced you," he choked, a bloody cough racking his body. "And then you saved me," she insisted. "We're even." She looked at her wrist. The mark was pulsing, a desperate, fading light. "It's not over. It's not over." "The curse," she whispered, an idea dawning, terrible and new. "It was meant for two, to be shared. But it's all in you." The curse wasn't just on him. The curse was him. It was his bloodline. But she was the anchor. "It wants a home," she whispered, remembering her words from the dungeon. "It thinks I'm its home." She looked at his dying face. She had a choice. Let him die and be free. The mark would fade. She would be a widow twice over, but she would be free. Or she made her choice. She had run from fate once. She wouldn't do it again. "I accept this," she whispered, leaning down, pressing her forehead to his. "Elara, no, run," he murmured. "Shut up, my king," she whispered back. "I am your fated mate, and I am claiming you. I claim your blood. I claim your life. And damn it all, I claim your curse." She pressed her marked wrist to the bleeding wound on his chest, where his wolf heart was giving its final beats. "Be mine," she commanded. "Live." She poured her will into the bond. It was no longer a request. It was a demand. The mark on her wrist exploded in white-hot fire. She screamed. It felt like her veins were being filled with acid. The curse, sensing a new, willing vessel, a safe vessel, leaped. It left him. It flooded her. Kalen's body arched in her arms, a massive, gasping breath filling his lungs. The color rushed back to his face. His wound, grievous moments before, began to knit, the flesh sealing. His eyes flew open, sharp, clear, and alive. Ilara collapsed beside him, panting, her body shaking. She looked at her arm. The crescent moon was still there, but it was no longer a shimmering golden light. It was a tattoo of purest black, and crawling from it, up her own arm, were the delicate, spiderweb-thin veins of shadow. The curse was hers now. Kalen sat up, his body whole, his strength thrumming. He was clean. For the first time in his life, he was free of the echo. He looked at Ilara. He saw her arm. He saw the black veins. What did you do?" he whispered, his voice full of awe and horror. I took it," she panted, feeling the cold metallic sickness settling into her bones. "It was heavy, so heavy. I took my half." "You took all of it?" he said, reaching for her, his hand trembling. He touched her arm, just below the creeping veins. His skin was warm, vital. The moment he touched her, the second he touched her, the veins stopped their crawl. They held steady. Ilara looked at him. It needs you, too. It needs us." Kalen sat up, his body whole, his strength thrumming. He was clean. For the first time in his life, he was free of the echo. He looked at Ilara. He saw her arm. He saw the black veins. What did you do?" he whispered, his voice full of awe and horror. I took it," she panted, feeling the cold, metallic sickness settling into her bones. "It was heavy, so heavy. I took my half." "You took all of it?" he said, reaching for her, his hand trembling. He touched her arm, just below the creeping veins. His skin was warm, vital. The moment he touched her, the second he touched her, the veins stopped their crawl. They held steady. Ilara looked at him. It needs you, too. It needs us." Insert CTA here as paragraph 2. It was stable. The curse, the terrible blood moon echo, was no longer a death sentence. It was a bond, a physical, undeniable chain. Kalen stared at her, his Alpha King's mask gone, replaced by the face of a man who had been to the brink of death and been pulled back by a miracle he didn't deserve. "You saved me," he said. "You saved me," she replied, her voice shaky. Valerius approached, sheathing his sword, his heralds moving to secure the courtyard. "My king, my queen." He bowed, first to Kalen and then with profound respect to Ilara. Kalen didn't correct him. He looked at Ilara, the widow from the trailer, his prisoner, his execution order, his savior. He reached out and, with a gentleness that shattered her, he brushed the tangled, blood-matted hair from her face. "So," he said, his voice rough, "a widow, a witch, and a queen." "I'm so tired," she whispered, the weight of the curse, the fight, the day, finally crashing down on her. "I know," he said. He slid his arms under her, lifting her from the cobblestones as if she weighed nothing. He stood, whole and strong, holding her against his chest. "I have you." He carried her into the citadel, past the stunned heralds, past the terrified servants, and past the bodies of the traitors. He didn't take her to the North Tower. He took her to his own chambers, the heart of the kingdom. He laid her on his bed, and for the first time, the curse did not fight him. It settled, because she was here.
Ilara awoke slowly, to the smell of herbs and the unfamiliar softness of fur blankets. She was clean. Someone had bathed her and dressed her in a simple, warm nightgown. Her body ached, but the heavy, sick feeling of the curse was muted. It was a dull thrum, like a sleeping animal, no longer a raging poison. She opened her eyes. Kalen was sitting in a chair beside the bed, watching her. He was dressed in a clean tunic, his hair damp, but he had not slept. His ice-blue eyes were fixed on her face. "You're awake," he said, his voice quiet. "You're alive," she replied, her voice hoarse. He nodded. "The healers, they don't understand. My wound is gone. The curse is gone. From me." He looked at her arm, which lay on top of the blankets. The black veins were still there, a delicate, dark tracery from her wrist to her elbow, stabilized.
"It's in me," she said, stating the fact. "No," he said, leaning forward. He reached out and took her hand, lacing his fingers with hers, palm to palm. The instant he did, the black veins on her arm retreated. They faded, pulling back, until only the black crescent moon on her wrist remained. She gasped. The dull, heavy thrum vanished. She felt light. "It's gone," she whispered. "No," he said again, his thumb brushing her mark. "It's shared. The moment I let you go." He released her hand. Immediately, the dull ache returned, and the veins crept back up her arm. She snatched his hand back, her fingers gripping his tightly. The veins vanished. The ache was gone. "Oh," she said, a small, fragile sound. "Yes," Kalen said, his expression grim but not unkind. "This is our new normal. We are, quite literally, bound. If I am to rule, we must stay close," she finished for him. She looked at their joined hands. This man who had rejected her, imprisoned her, and sentenced her to death was now her only relief, and she, his. "The kingdom," she began, "is in chaos," he finished. "The elders are ashamed. Serena's pack is in disgrace. And my people? They saw their king save a borderkin witch and take her to his chambers." He let out a dry, mirthless laugh. "You are quite the scandal, Ilara." "I am the widow from the trailer," she whispered, the old identity feeling like a lifetime ago. "You are the woman who walked into the fire for me," he corrected, his voice low. "You are the woman who took my curse. You are my fated mate. And you will be my queen." It was not a proposal. It was a statement of fact, a declaration. "They will hate me," she said, thinking of the elders, the other alphas. "They hated me when I was dying," Kalen replied, his gaze fierce. "Let them hate me now that I am living. Let them hate us. We will rule anyway. Together. We have to." He squeezed her hand. "Valerius is waiting." "The elders are waiting. But I must ask, Ilara." He, the Alpha King, looked hesitant. My rejection, my cruelty. I was a fool, blinded by lore and by fear. I am sorry." Ilara looked at him, truly looked at him. He was not the dying skeleton on the throne. He was not the arrogant king in her cell. He was just Kalen, her fated mate, and his blue eyes were full of a regret so profound it made her own heart ache. "You were a fool," she agreed softly. He flinched, but she didn't let go of his hand. "And I," she continued, "was a widow, blinded by grief. I didn't want to see this. I didn't want you." She sighed. I think we were both wrong, and I think we both paid for it." She looked at her wrist, now clean, held in his grasp. "And we will keep paying. Every day. Together," he affirmed. "Together," she echoed. He stood, pulling her gently to her feet. She was still weak, but he supported her. He led her to the balcony of his chambers. The doors opened to the cold, clean morning air. The citadel was below them, battered but standing. The people were gathering in the courtyard, staring up, whispering. They had seen the fight. They had seen him carry her in. Kalen stood tall, his arm around her waist, holding her steady, his hand clasping hers. He held their joined hands up for all to see. Ilara, the widow from the trailer, stood beside him. She was no longer in rags. She was no longer an outcast. She looked at the black crescent moon on her wrist, forever covered by his hand. She was bound. He was bound. "My king," she whispered, leaning her head against his shoulder, feeling the steady, strong beat of his heart. "My queen," he replied, his voice full of iron and a new, quiet reverence. He kissed the top of her head. The curse was not broken. It was shared, and in sharing it, they had found something more powerful. A cure, a kingdom, and a fated, impossible love.